Are you looking for a fish with big energy, small size, and a colorful display? Then you might be looking for the Celestial Pearl Danio. And in this video, we're going to teach you all about how to care for it and if you should have them in your aquarium. Hey guys, welcome back to MattKeepsFish. And like I said, we are talking about the Celestial Pearl Danios today. I've been taking care of this batch for a year and a half, and I'm super excited to talk about them. Let's start with the look, shall we? You may have heard it said that these guys look like little trout, and they totally do. Now these guys have a few different names. There's the one I just said, but then there's also CPD, or they're also called Galaxy Rasboras. However, according to the Latin, they're not Rasboras. Like many Danios do, these guys have a silvery blue body. But what's different with these guys is it is spotted with little white spots, kind of like a galaxy. If their base color is space, then these little dots are stars, and it's a really nice look. Even nicer when paired with the anal, ventral, caudal, and dorsal fin, all of which are bright orange. Moving up to the head of the fish, we can even see a little bit of pink from the gills shining through the gill plate. That's even more color. And check out those cute little eyes and mouth. So adorable. Although many other Danios like the zebra Danio will have barbels to help them search for food, I'm not sure if these have them. I've never seen it. What most keepers may not pay attention to is the flat area on top of the head and the beginning of the back. This area is especially important for the males, and we'll get around to that in just a second. But first, let's zoom out a bit. Wow, these guys are small. They are tiny. They are the smallest Danio. And if you know of a smaller Danio, leave it in the comments. I would love to see it. The largest Danio that I've had after a year and a half of growing out is only about the size of my thumbnail. And this is a great time to talk about sexing because the males and females do have a size difference. Males do get larger than females. A large female is never going to be nearly as large as a large male. Although I have a small sample here, I've also seen this in other people's aquariums. Another great way to sex these fish is by the coloration. For males, that blue-gray on the body is much more blue than it is for the females. And the orange on the fins that we described seems to cover the fins more completely for the males. Now, I also said I was going to talk about why the forehead and the beginning of the back was important. Well, just like dwarf neon rainbow fish, the males will show how wide their forehead is to the female so that she can see just how girthy that male is, just how muscular he is. When the male shows off his forehead like this, it can flash a golden brown. He'll do this to entice her and bring her over to somewhere that they can breed. And it's pretty common that they do this, but the eggs are a quick snack for most fish, including the Danios. But that's not where the displays end. No, that's only the beginning. The best displays are between males. When two males are competing for a female, they'll get close together in a tight circle, chasing the other one's tail in a slow turn. And all the while, they're flexing those fins, showing just how big and colorful they are. Like I said, these guys have big energy. They're a Danio after all. And although they're not quite as restless as a zebra or giant Danio, they're still always moving around. What makes them better than the other Danios, in my opinion, is that this energy is often put into sparring one another or chasing each other through the moss. One thing that I would definitely recommend to get the most out of this fish's behavior is to have dense plants in their environment. During the times when my moss was thickest, these guys were constantly diving through it. The way they jumped through the moss, it looked like dolphins jumping through waves. Now there is one behavioral issue, and although it's not showing right now because they haven't been fed yet, does come up from time to time. And that is that these guys are pretty shy. Let's see what happens when I put my hand up here. Yeah, all run away. If you're not moving too much, if you're not getting too close to the aquarium, they'll play all they want. But if you get too close, they're jumping to the back. However, as you can see, the second I turn my back to look at the camera, they're right back to being at the front of the glass. And those are the little females. This may improve if you have more CPDs in the tank, but there's 6 plus about 10 ember tetras, so I don't know how far you need to go. All right, now you know what they're like. Let's talk about how to care for them. As always, let's get water parameters out of the way. They don't really matter for this species. That is, they don't matter as long as they're stable, and if they're coming from a water source that's very different from your own, you're introducing them slowly. A massive shift in hardness, pH, or temperature can cause a lot of issues for this fish very quickly. So I'd always recommend a slow acclimation period once you get your fish, and you shouldn't have any issues. But not all things can be adapted to, and one of those things, other than salinity, is temperature. Although these guys are a Danio, and some Danios are able to go a little bit lower in temperature, I'd recommend typical tropical temperature for these guys. somewhere under 80, but definitely above 72. I've been keeping them at 78 degrees Fahrenheit and they've been doing pretty well. Another way that they differ from other Danios is their flow tolerance. Giant Danios and zebra Danios love to jump into a flow, but these guys, not so much. As you can see here, I've got the filter output on the left, and these guys don't really like going anywhere near it. They prefer to stay where it's nice and calm and relaxed. So if you want to put these guys in a river tank, maybe make sure that there's a dead zone and don't expect them to go jumping in that flow too often. All right, tank size. How big of a tank would I put them in? Well, this is a 20-gallon standard and they're loving it. Could you put them in a 5-gallon and have them survive in that? Yeah, and you know what? They might reach their full lifespan in a 5-gallon. But you could have them in a 20-gallon and see all this activity going on. So while I'll say that you could have them in a 5-gallon and have lots of joy out of them in that, I'm going to say that a 20-gallon is pretty awesome. Tankmates, what can you put them with? Who are their buddies? Well, I'll tell you right now, pretty much anyone around their own size. I even had a honey gourami in here, and yeah, they didn't really care about each other too much. They just kind of left each other alone. Unlike the zebra Danios, these guys are also not going to outcompete your other fish either, because they don't have barbels. So as always, any fish that's not going to hurt them, that's not going to eat them, and that they're not going to hurt or outcompete is going to be a good tank mate. If I can get a little artistic here, something that I would recommend is something that goes with the colors really well. You've got a really strong navy blue in the males and orange too. In order to capture that, I put them with ember tetras and it goes really well. All right, lastly, feeding. What do you give these guys to eat? Well, I'm going to be pretty boring and say that I just do a premium flake and pellet, which they really love. They'll jump to the surface for some flakes. They'll scavenge around the bottom for some pellets. Just keep in mind that they do have a pretty small mouth, which is why they mostly eat the flakes, and the pellets they kind of have to pick at for a while. And you know what having a small mouth makes them great for? Picking off little baby shrimp. All of my shrimp went missing shortly after I added these guys. The adults were fine, but with no babies to grow up to replace them, the population started to disappear. Now, I'm not saying it's them, but they do like to dive through moss. They do have a lot of energy, and they do like trying new things. So, should you get Celestial Pearl Danios? Well, do you have a nano tank? They've outlived the other fish in my tank. They've been less likely to jump than my catfish was, and their intraspecies aggression has not been something that gets out of hand. As long as you have these guys in a stable aquarium with a good school, I started with 6, but more the merrier with any schooling fish, then these guys have a good chance of outliving all the other nano fish you have. And they're going to look pretty cool doing it. Honestly, I couldn't imagine having nano tanks without one of them having Celestial Pearl Danios in it. I think for $6 each, I got a fish that looks and acts like a rainbow fish that was nowhere near as expensive as the smaller rainbow fish are. Now, prices may vary, but what I'm saying is these guys are worth it. The only reasons I'd say you shouldn't get some of these guys is if you want to go cold water or you just really hate cool nano fish. Anyways, guys, that's it for me. I hope you liked this video. If you did like it, leave a like. If you want to see more videos like this, care guides, updates, final projects, subscribe, and I will see you guys on a Sunday.